Good morning. Please silence your cell phones. I'm on my tiptoes here. I didn't tell her. I'm Marty Saltzman, and on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I'd like to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Swannanoa Valley. And we are a welcoming congregation, which we demonstrate all the time. No matter what your background is, the color of your skin, who you love, what baggage you bring, you know all the list of things. We welcome you here. So, we like to say that love is the doctrine of this church. Good. Truth is sacrifice. I'm so good at this. This is the last time I'm doing it, so forever. Okay, our mission statement is printed on the front of the order of service, and our 8 guiding principles are on the back. It's our tradition to welcome first and second time visitors, or those of you who haven't been here a while, and we ask you if you're comfortable to stand and introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. So anyone over here?
My name is Phil Slater, and I'm just traveling through on a 6-month road trip. And I tried to go to the UU closest to where I'm at on Sunday, and if you want to see what I'm up to, my website is checkingoffthebucketlist.com.
All right. And we like to think that we're the pick of the litter. So.
Read my blog.
All right, anybody else over here?
Good morning, I'm Julia Sanchez. I live in Asheville, and my mom, Reverend Janet Ani, just moved here from Stanton, Virginia.
Yeah. Welcome. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Troy. I live in Swannanoa and just recently purchased a place in Black Mountain.
All right.
I'm Kate. I'm a new member. I've been here maybe 4 times now, but I'm usually late, so it's the first time I've gotten to And I'm here in Black Mountain.
All right. Welcome.
Elaine.
I'm Elaine Rose. I'm visiting from Bethesda, Maryland, Hutchinson, and Deborah and I knew each other in high school. But I didn't know that the speaker today. Wow. I knew there was a speaker talking about this, but I didn't know it was Deborah.
Welcome.
I knew her well.
And I worked for her father in high school and college as a plumber.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, finally, how about over here?
I'm Reverend Morgan Barkley. I'm a Unity minister, and I hang out at the Asheville Unity. Well, actually, it's Unity, the Blue Ridge. And I'm here because my partner Barry dragged me here because these two, they all went to school together.
Oh, all right. Well, welcome. Thanks for dragging me.
I'm Barry Shepard. I also attend the Unity of the Blue Ridge, and these guys are wonderful. So I'm here, and it's so nice to be here, fun.
Welcome. Anyone else?
I'm Nancy Bragg, and I am from Asheville, and I attend the UU congregation of Asheville. and Deb and Leslie were in our spiritual direction class. So it's good to be here.
All right, welcome.
I would like to, hello everyone, I'm Maiden, I'm from Colombia. I'm also a traveler, I do love your story. And I'm maybe planning to move with my fiancé, maybe next year or 2 years, so.
Hey, all right, welcome. Anyone else?
My friend has seen this before and said it's wonderful, and I should come and check things out.
All right.
Welcome.
Anyone else? That's it? Okay. Well, all right. Get up there.
My name's Seal, I'm from New Jersey.
What exit?
And yes, it's lovely to be here with you all. I just moved to Black Mountain.
Okay. Do we get everyone? If you'd like to know more about us or receive our newsletter, please fill out one of these yellow or orange cards. They're in the back of the pews and the hymnals, or there's some up front in the foyer, and drop them in the covering basket or leave them on the table up front, and we'll be in touch. Also, we have members of our membership committee here. They're wearing orange name tags. They'll stand up. And if you want to chat them up and learn more about us, please do so. You can find them in the dessert line, right?
Dessert always comes first.
It's uncertain. Okay. And finally, before the announcements, but finally here, I'm going to read our land acknowledgement. UUCSB acknowledges with respect that the land we are on today is the ancestral home of the Cherokee and other indigenous people. The Cherokee, through stewardship, understanding, and conservation, survive and thrive in this land. We acknowledge their enduring connection to their homeland. Okay, a couple of announcements. The Social Action Committee is rescheduling the June 24th book discussion on Not the End of the World by Hannah Ritchie. A new date will be announced soon. In the meantime, if you have concerns about climate, and who doesn't these days, have you visited Swannanoa lately? Or parts of White Mountain? Read the book. It's great summer reading, and I'm sure you'll find lots of interesting stuff in here on how to build a sustainable planet. You can get it in any bookseller. Okay, next. I just got this. Susan Enright Hicks, our RE director, is proposing to buy tickets to the tourist games. So please sign up. There's a sign-up sheet on the table in the foyer. And join us. And there's 2 games she's looking at: Sunday, July 6th, or Friday, August 22nd. There's information on the sign-up sheet. $1 hot dogs, so who can resist? You can also text Susan if you look her name up, and I'm not going to tell you her phone number because you won't remember anyway. So anyway, the tourist games are really fun, so come on out. And finally, we have a potluck following the service. Please come. There's always too much food. And one less dessert won't hurt anyone, so. All right, thank you, and now. Those of you who've been here a while know I always mess this up. Let our service begin. All right.
Good morning. I'm Leslie Fabian. Maybe that's obvious. And I have the opening words and the chalice lighting. And the opening words are from Starhawk. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will lift up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing. A circle of friends. Someplace where we can be free. And Deborah has already lit the chalice, but I will read the chalice lighting words. As we light this chalice, may each breath remind us of the sacred, the pulse of creation, and the power we hold to shape the world around us.
Our hymn is in the gray hymnal, number 6, just as long as I have breath. Stand if you're willing and able.
choir. One of the ways we build connection and community is by devoting a part of the service to sharing our personal joys and concerns. You are welcome to come up and drop a pebble into the vessel or light a candle, and the floor is yours. Represents those other joys, concerns, sorrows that we're holding in our hearts that we choose not to express.
So we have a very brief meditation and prayer from Muriel Kaiser. And we'll have a few moments of meditation, and I'll ring the chime. However confused the scene of our life appears. Sorry. I'll start over. However confused the scene of our life appears, however torn we may be, who now do face that scene, it can be faced, and we can go on to be whole.
We're going to call for the offering now while the choir comes up for the next anthem. Thank you for your generosity in supporting the work of this congregation. Thank you, Sue and Linda and the choir for that beautiful song. You all have read, I think, a good bit about our speakers who have come from Virginia to be with us for the weekend. I asked them for a little bit of background information that maybe we didn't know about. And I learned that a long time ago in a former life, Deborah was a plumber's apprentice. She didn't tell me that, but that was kind of interesting. She was an all-star soccer player at William and Mary. And some of you, like me, remember when we had a draft lottery when we were fighting the Vietnam War? And Deborah got a high number and went into the Navy. Yeah. So how'd they get here? This is an interesting story. 2021, I think, post-COVID, they're thinking about retirement. They're in search of a community, and they kind of went to some areas that they wanted to check out. They had heard about Asheville, kind of cool place, and actually came through Black Mountain and liked what they saw. They ended up, I think, back in Virginia. Yeah. But thanks to one of our more entrepreneurial members of this congregation, a guy who's just an auction fanatic, Larry Perlman. Not our auction. Thank you all for supporting it. It was another huge success this year. He somehow put a weekend getaway in Black Mountain in the Williamsburg UU auction. Larry, who would have thunk? And these two lovely people apparently purchased it. And one thing leads to another, and this was the weekend they chose, and Leslie very thoughtfully kind of suggested, hey, we've spoken to UU congregations. Would you all be interested in us doing a service, standing on the side of love? Who by chance in your closet, in your cupboard, has a standing on the side of love shirt? There we have Diane Hutchins is modeling one. Several of us have those t-shirts. Yeah. So here we are, and I will just mention also that Reverend Carter's sabbatical kind of officially started last Sunday. Most of you know that. And so we are going to have a number of guest speakers coming up for the next 3 months. And so typically either Andy Reed or Rochelle Broom or Lee will be introducing our speakers. A few folks are going to be coming back for repeat visits. So we encourage you all to stay connected, keep coming, and have a great summer. And with that, I turn it over to Leslie and Deborah.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. So as we said at the Williamsburg Unitarian Universalist Congregations auction last fall, Leslie and I bid on this weekend here in Black Mountain, and we won. We tried to lowball it, but we got bid and so we won this weekend, and then things really snowballed, and we made arrangements to speak this morning. So we at the WU are starting to plan our process for this fall's auction. So just give you a warning, be careful what you offer to strangers. As a U.S. Navy veteran and a transgender individual, I was invited to speak at last Saturday's No Kings protest in Williamsburg. We had somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 people apparently. And I was asked to give a brief talk about transgender in the United States at this time, and I concluded my very brief 3 minutes of fame by saying, I am transgender, I'm a veteran, and I am proud. Now I'm approaching my 76th birthday, and I confess that this idea of being proud, approaching it much too quickly, and I point out that pride is a relatively new concept for me. I've struggled with owning the label transgender. For 76 years, I have grappled with the understanding and accepting myself and these feelings. Although the first 4 or 5 years are a bit hazy, but from then on, I have struggled with these feelings. I transitioned to live full-time as a woman about 14 years ago. And I've finally accepted myself, and I actually really now know true happiness. And I've come to feel pride. Sorry. I've been supported by Leslie, my steadfast and loving partner of over 35 years, and I found the UU principals and UU congregations to be instrumental in my process of accepting myself. June is Pride Month, and this tradition, of course, began back in 1969 following the Stonewall uprisings, when police entered a gay and trans nightclub, resulting in arrests, beatings, harassment, and 5 days of riots. This was the beginning of the gay rights movement in the United States and the formalization of Pride Month. So what's Pride Month all about? For one thing, it's not just for LGBTQIA plus people. It's for our allies. It's for everyone. Pride Month is about taking a positive stance against discrimination and violence, specifically toward lesbian, gay, bisexual, and trans individuals. And it's about promoting self-affirmation, dignity, equality. It is about increasing the visibility of as a social group. It's about building community and celebrating diversity. Wikipedia describes pride as confidence and self-respect as expressed by members of a group, typically one that has been socially marginalized, on the basis of their shared identity and experience. Encyclopedia Britannica says pride is a feeling that you respect yourself and deserve. Stop to look out at your faces. A feeling that you respect yourself and deserve to be respected by other people.
Deb and I first presented to a UU congregation in 2011 at the Unitarian Universalist Society of Gardner, Massachusetts. This was our home congregation then, and what we said came as quite a shock to our beloved congregants. David Fabian was coming out to them as Deborah. She was just testing the waters at that point. It would be 10 more months before she actually came out full-time to everyone. And I will simply mention that she is an orthopedic surgeon and was practicing in Gardner, Massachusetts, and we were taking a big chance in coming out at the UU church in Gardner, and we asked them to keep it under their hats. I'm not sure they did, but at any rate, that's water over the dam. For most of her adult life, Deb has been what was once called a cross-dresser. Apparently that term is no longer used. Or going further back, a transvestite. And of course, there have been a variety of mental health diagnoses about this phenomenon through the years. Deb ultimately came out full-time in October of 2011, and we've since presented to a variety of groups, as well as multiple UU congregations. We generally focus on Deb's 60 years of struggling with transgenderism and how it fit into our marriage and lives. I think I say later on, but I'll tell you right now, when I met my husband, well, the name of my book is When I Met My Husband, He Was Wearing a Dress. So I knew something. We've explained what it was like for me to support my husband of 20 years in becoming completely true to herself at last, and of my concluding a year or so into the transition that I would be staying in our marriage. I wasn't sure. I told her I would always love her and support her, but I simply couldn't at that point say, of course I'll stay with you. I really had no idea. Well, I had a little idea, but was taking care of myself. So we sometimes, we've talked about how we handled the transition as a couple and of what's occurred since then in terms of family responses, you can imagine, I'm sure, career struggles and multiple moves, plus a long-term successful legal battle. So what to say about all of this now? Times change, of course, and with ongoing vocabulary adjustments, style fluctuations, trends, and of course now the threatening presidential and political changes. We're very concerned, needless to say. Currently, most people seem to assume that they know what the trans world is all about. In fact, there's an abundance of politicians who believe that they absolutely know what it's about, believing it's simply a choice or a statement some people make, or with kids, that it's due to parents who bow to their children's whims. With blinders in place and biases and misinformation feeding their ignorance, these people would have individuals like my beloved Deborah deny their authenticity. With an apparent complete lack of compassion and empathy and their tightly closed minds, they'd like to see individuals who finally, perhaps, or who have found the courage to stop denying what they know to be true in their souls, to return to their closets of shame, self-loathing, depression, and pain. So, where to begin this 25 years into our new millennium to explain this phenomenon in our lives, the difficulties we've encountered, and where we're going from here?
You may have guessed that pride is a relatively new feeling for me. From my youngest days, I wanted to be a girl. I felt good when I secretly wore my sister's clothes. Did you know Sally? No. My sister. Anyway, same school as us. But I knew very, very clearly that this desire was wrong. I certainly couldn't talk about it to anyone. So I was completely closeted. And I became very good at keeping secrets, probably especially to myself. I was in medical school in the 1970s when, during my psychiatry rotation, a transgender patient tried to kill herself by jumping out of a window. One of the psychiatry residents with whom I was working muttered, "Too bad he didn't kill himself. He's really screwed up." Almost immediately, I looked up transsexuality in the psychiatry textbooks and found that the experts labeled it, and this is a quote, "a serious psychiatric condition." This, of course, reinforced my determination to keep myself hidden. And I've been recently reminded that the terminology keeps changing over the years, and I won't try to give definitions, and I apologize for using perhaps any less than modern terminology. My journey, however, has not been dependent on jargon or definitions. It's based on my deepest inner feelings that just would not go away. The thought of suicide first showed up to me when I was a surgical resident at Dartmouth Medical Center in New Hampshire in the mid-1970s. My now ex-wife was away, and I was able to cross-dress. One evening I drove to a town many miles away, and as I got out of my car, someone saw me, called the police. Police came, handcuffed me, arrested me, strip searched me, and put me in a jail cell. There was no sink in the jail cell, so I knelt in front of the toilet to wash the makeup off my face. And later, when I saw a psychiatrist to deal with this, he said, whenever you feel like cross-dressing in the future, reenact kneeling in front of a toilet and wash your face. And that worked. It took a lot of alcohol too, but that worked for a while. I was released though after that, as it was determined that no laws had been broken, but the damage had been done. Later that night, I wrote myself a prescription for enough sleeping pills to do the job. I looked at that bottle for several days, thinking now's the time to take these. I think the fact that my daughter was 1 year old at the time is all that kept me alive at that point. A psychiatrist resident, I just said this, told me to reenact that whenever I felt like cross-dressing. Over the next few years, I dug into my head and a bottle of pills in my hand at least twice. And I could hardly tolerate this feeling because I knew it was wrong and it just wouldn't go away. At that time, my now ex-wife told me I was disgusting. And of course, I agreed. I felt disgusting. Pride for me was not even a remote possibility at that time. In the mid-1980s, around age 36, 37, I finally achieved a position that I've been working for my entire life. I finished my residency, I passed my orthopedic boards and was board certified. I was a respected member of the medical staff at a suburban Boston teaching hospital, and I had 4 young children. I was later elected chief of surgery in that hospital, and I was miserable. Nothing made this repulsive transgender feeling go away. I knew that I needed help, and I finally found a therapist who specialized in gender issues. And gradually, through my work with her, my life began to change dramatically. Then, not long after beginning therapy, I met Leslie at a women's group where I'd gone to explain my story, and boy, did that complicate my life.
That's me, always complicating people's lives. Well, as the first sentence of my book says, and I've mentioned this already, when I first met my husband, he was wearing a dress. So from the get-go, I knew there was something unusual about Deborah Fabian, or rather David Fabian. And by the way, please note that for clarity, I speak of my spouse as David and he when explaining the past, and as Deborah and she for whenever he was cross-dressed, and of course since the transition. So it's she, and people do struggle with that. I'm always correcting you. It was 1987, and Deborah had come to a gathering of my women's group, but not as a participant. Along with 3 other clients of our hostess, Neela, a transgender specialist, Deb had agreed to speak to us about the transgender world and her part in it. This was the first time she'd ever appeared en femme, so dressed, with anyone other than Neela. Took a lot of courage. We group members, mostly psychotherapists, learned a great deal that day. Very few people knew much about this in 1987. Unexpectedly, a part of my reaction was an extreme attraction to the tall, thin presenter in the purple dress. I was definitely intrigued by her expression, yes, but I was also touched deeply by her honesty, vulnerability, and of course her sense of humor. And you've had touches of all of this, so you can see why I'd fall in love with this person, I'm pretty sure. I'd been a single mom at that point for 6 years, and indeed, I was in the market for a male partner. That sounds so commercial, but anyway, I wasn't desperate. But I'd never entertained the idea of a man in a dress. So at that point, David considered himself a cross-dresser, never entertaining the possibility of living full-time as a woman. However, through the ensuing years, including numerous forays together with cross-dressing, we'd go into Boston for dinner or we'd go away for a weekend, he'd occasionally revealed that this dream was his biggest fantasy, living full-time as a woman. So as I've been asked in a variety of ways from time to time, what makes you the kind of person who went along with this? I'd been attracted to a man in a dress. I had married him. And then after 2 decades, I encouraged him to transition. My best explanation begins with my own early life and how unusual my family seemed to be. When I was 3 years old, my mother had a severe case of polio and spent the rest of her life, 80 years, she lived to 80, in a wheelchair. And we were a pretty odd sight back then. My athletic father pushing my mother at breakneck speed with 4 little kiddos trying to keep up with them. That was in 1952 that she had polio. So we were an odd sight, and we were different. And we actually became Unitarians in 1959. I think I was in 5th grade, which of course made us unusual in lots of ways. And then there was the mental illness in my family, which may have gone way back in our history. Most apparent in my immediate family was my paternal grandmother's paranoid schizophrenia and Dad's brother, my father's brother, with some undiagnosed disorder. We may have looked normal in many ways, but then my younger brother began a mental decline shortly after his graduation from college. He killed himself at 22, devastating us all, though we certainly lacked the effective methods of dealing with the magnitude of this loss back in 1973. In 1981, I divorced my first husband after 12 years of marriage and 2 children. I had adored him, but we were very young when we married, and he was a drinker with no clue as to what I meant when I requested bettering our marriage together. This was devastating, but necessary. I guess what I'm talking about here is my strength, to some degree. Then in the summer of 1987, my beloved older sister, who'd been a clinical social worker and a guide for me in many ways, took her life at age 39. Now, I know this is shocking to hear. I'm always hesitant to just tell you, but it's kind of essential to relate these stories because of the perspective that they've provided me. Early in my relationship with Deborah, he had frequently said to me, "I don't know how you can be okay with this. My ex-wife thought it was disgusting." Well, to me, it seemed that the need for David's cross-dressing was undeniable, as well as absolutely harmless, though I did not then know or understand the complexity of the need. I thought it was just kind of a fun thing that he did, but I quickly learned otherwise. When he asked how I could so readily accept it, I invariably replied, "You know what happens in my family when people are unhappy. If putting on a dress makes you happy, put on a dress." It just didn't seem like that big a deal.
So she's to blame. So after 20 years of marriage and Leslie's support for occasional cross-dressing, we both realized, she said in about 2009, that I needed more. Leslie was fed up with my being depressed, and I'd been on antidepressants for 15 or more years that just weren't working. And she really seemed to want me to be happy. So we explored transitioning, ultimately agreeing that this was the path I needed to take. I began living full-time as Deborah in 2011, and Leslie dealt with her process in various ways, including writing her book, which is a love story that was published in 2014, and we actually advertisement, we have some out there. And I find that I am more in love with Leslie every day. Amazingly, each of our 6 children between us and the 5 spouses among them support this enormous change. There were issues and there were times when they didn't want to see me. In fact, I'll tell you, Elaine, you're sitting there. My older son had said right after our transition, I'm happy for you, but I just don't want to see it. And then about 3 weeks later, he called up and said, "I've got a leak under my sink." Can you come over and fix it? I said, "Well, you know, I look a little different." He said, "I don't care. I gotta fix this later." Discrimination, however, does exist. I knew that my own private solo orthopedic practice would suffer, and suffer during the transition process. And during that process, I looked at over 100 jobs in various places, and I was eminently qualified. They were very interested. When I told them that I was transgender in the process of transitioning, they all went away. In the most egregious example, as my male self in my early 60s, I had applied for and interviewed as male for a position that was going to be kind of a dream job. And I was hired, signed the contract, and when I told them, by the way, when I show up, I'm going to look a little different, the job went away. The contract was rescinded, and I was told a number of lies based on random comments. I'm sort of a sense of humor, and I said things that they made lies about and rescinded the contract. The lawsuit commenced. Fabian versus Hospital of, and I can't tell you with a name, but feel free to look up. It's in Connecticut. And during that process, I was deposed several times, and I sat through the depositions of the people who had, while initially supporting me, after learning about me, went against me, and they were willing to lie about me under oath. We ultimately prevailed, but the battle continues. My case was written into Bostock versus Clayton County, if you know, it's a Supreme Court decision in 2020, which upheld the point that discrimination against LGBT people is illegal. And my case is, I'm delighted, is in there. So during that process, what happened for me was I got angry. And I refused to be treated this way. I needed this anger to allow me to hold on to my pride. I also had Leslie by my side, and she was deeply involved in the process. And she was deposed herself. And we had together very strong bond during that time and very strong emotional involvement with the process. And as uncomfortable and as hate-filled as the process was, I learned to love myself. And I recognized that I am not alone. And I guess that is where pride comes in. It is mandatory for me to proclaim this sense of pride for myself. But how does one maintain a sense of pride considering what is happening in the United States today? Every day there are new laws and there's new news coming along. And I could list and discuss what is happening, although I suspect you're all aware. Just this past week, U.S. Supreme Court upheld Tennessee's ban on affirming health care for transgender youth. The repercussions of this will be widespread and devastating for the younger transgender people who are in the process of trying to figure themselves out. And this decision was a 180-degree turn from the Bostock decision 5 years ago, Scrimeti versus Tennessee. Our current administration seems to have a vendetta against transgender people. Transgender is genetic, it's hormonal, there are scientific basis for it. It is not a choice. The choice that I had to make was accepting myself, and that's the choice that is being fought against right now. One is born transgender. And transgenderism has become a wedge issue for the current administration, despite the fact that transgender individuals make up less than 1% of our population, somewhere around 2 million of us. Yet mistaken beliefs, bigotry, and hatred about people like me are being used to alienate us and divide this country. I've got arrows all over this sheet, I have to follow it. Our current laws regarding sports participation and bathroom usage have been passed without any thoughts of caring for others. They are being passed for political purposes. And we should debate sports participation, and we should discuss bathroom usage. We should, and it should be discussed by people who care, not those who are trying to make political gains. Thoughts of suicide and suicide attempts or suicide completions occur in upwards of 70% of transgender people. In the wider LGBTQIA population, it's about 60%. And I have been there. Critics will say that this suicidal tendency shows that there's a mental illness in transgender people. It is not. It is due to the biases and hatred and discrimination present in this country. That 70% of suicidal ideation, attempts, or completion becomes 20% when there is the ability to receive gender-affirming care and there are gender-affirming spaces available. And I firmly believe that the existence of this congregation and the support evident here saves lives. Someone will be alive tomorrow because of your presence and love today. Thank you.
Almost finished. I'm guessing that many or most of you, along with us, have felt a range of emotions in recent months. There has been disbelief, shock, outrage, grief, disappointment, depression, you name it. And as of last Saturday, with the No Kings demonstration, a degree of hopefulness and a touch of optimism. One thing that will never happen in our lives, regardless, is a return to the shame-filled closet of Deb's younger years. We are secure in knowing that Deborah has overcome the biases, judgments, and outrageous falsities, coupled with hatred, that have pervaded segments of our society for decades or maybe even centuries. We know this because we have a love that holds us strong in our commitment to authenticity and to each other. One of our spiritual guides, John Roger, taught us long ago to remember that there's nothing more important in life than the loving. And in our experience, telling people our story and educating others to the reality of the transgender phenomenon generally results in a recognition of how very loved we are. Regardless of how others respond, Deb and I will always stand on the side of love.
Our last hymn will be in this teal hymnal you have. It's 1053, How Could Anyone? 1053. And we're going to sing it twice. This is new to a lot of people, so I'll play it through for the first time.
closing words. Hang on.
You know, we often go down there for closing words. If you have your mic, that way people can shake your hand.
Okay.
If you want to.
You can make a quick exit.
Well, I'm not missing the potluck.
The closing words are from Tom Shea, a retired UU minister in the Boston area. He wrote, "A power at work in the universe." My friends, there is a power at work in the universe. It works through human hands, but it was not made by human hands. It is a creative, sustaining, and transformative power, and we can trust that power with our lives and with our ministries. It will sustain us when we take a stand on the side of love. Whenever we take a stand for peace and justice, whenever we take a risk, trust in that power, we are together held by that power.
This concludes our service.